Life podcast. Today's a busy day. We got two podcasts in one day going on. I'm here with a crypto expert, but not just a crypto expert, an expert in entrepreneurship and building businesses. This is Niko Mercuris, and I probably butchered the name, so I apologize for doing that. So really today we're going to really touch on quite a bit of different topics, but I'm really excited to hear Niko's background and give him the opportunity to really talk to you about it, because it is really, really an interesting background. He's built multiple businesses. Now he's obviously in the crypto space and doing some great things there. But being an entrepreneur and being someone that's built businesses, there are some common themes. So we're going to touch on some of those things that has made him successful. Welcome, Niko, to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You only messed up a little bit on the last name.
I figured it'd be the back part of it. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, so I'm trying to do the best job I can.
Only my whole life. It's okay.
I understand that. Mine's easy to pronounce, Schuman, but it's always whether they leave the C out or in my last name. And
yes.
My son comes home and says, they always forget the C. I said, just get used to it. You just got to correct people for the rest of your life. So just get used to it. Yeah.
All good.
This is one of those things. Well, I like I said, you have a really great background in business. Why don't you tell everybody, where you come from, how you became an entrepreneur, and kind of what led you into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So interesting. You hear the rags to riches stories out there, and that's usually how it goes. People start with nothing and then they build a fortune over time. And I have kind of the opposite. And no one's going to feel sorry for me for this, but my dad, when I was a kid, my dad was a very successful restaurateur, Greek immigrant. Of course, all Greeks have restaurants, and he did very well. And we lived on island estates in St. Pete Beach, Florida, on the water with a big yacht in the backyard. And of course, I was only 4 or 5 years old at the time. So, and what happened is something we didn't expect. My father passed away when I was 7, going on 8 years old. My mother was a stay-at-home housewife. He was an immigrant from Greece with a 4th grade education. My mother dropped out of high school in 10th grade and ran away from home and married my dad. So didn't come from a bunch of scholars here. But what he did have was entrepreneurship. All he knew was how to build a restaurant and how to be the guy at the restaurant, greeting everybody and entertaining people. So he did very well. So, but however, when he passed away when I was 8, he did not plan for his death. He didn't have insurance. He didn't have anything. So my mother, not having any experience at all in any kind of business, she had to literally sell all of the furniture and the antiques that she had collected over the years. And that turned into a business for her, buying and selling antiques. But we ended up selling that house, I believe, for like $60,000 back in the early 70s. And right now it's almost a $3 million house on the water in Terra Verde. But so it was starting out with money, but I didn't know it. And then my mother ended up moving into a motel and raising 3 kids and starting an antique business. And by the time I was in high school, I ended up dropping out myself. I followed the family tradition there and went and ran the antique and jewelry store for my mother, which became a very big success back in the late 70s, early 80s. And so that was the very beginning. But probably around 18, 19, 20 years old, I started getting the entrepreneurial bug. What was big in my area here in Florida was telemarketing offices and call centers. So one of my first jobs was a telemarketer to make extra money. And so I was good. I was good on the phones. I was good a salesperson. And then I ended up starting my own call center. And that's when things really took off. So, fast forward a little bit to more recent times. I had a call center in Clearwater, Florida. We had over 150 employees at one point, doing very well, made millions and then lost millions. The market changed. The government rules changed. Do not call list changed. All kinds of things changed in that industry. So I started buying real estate. I started flipping houses. I wrote 2 books. Then I wrote a 3rd book. I published them. I was speaking on stages to help other call centers and other sales offices to get their sales teams up to, doing well. And that's kind of where I got my start in sales and marketing. And then, Facebook come around. These things didn't exist back then. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, build a blog, put yourself out there and try to, attraction marketing started. And we were trying to, basically attract people to us to get clients so that we can offer training and coaching in the sales world. And it wasn't until probably early 2000, 2001, 2002, where I started getting into trading. And I went to the online school of trading, which is not online. Actually, it's a business, it's actual place you go to and sit in a classroom with teachers that are hedge fund managers. And, so I learned how to trade the stock market. I was trading options and contracts and futures. And then when crypto started coming around, I didn't really pay attention to it until about 2015. And that's when I started buying Bitcoin, not really knowing what I was doing. I think it was at the time about $300 for one Bitcoin, and built up a little bit of a portfolio then. And then when it went up to like $8,000, I just thought, okay, it's never going to get any better than this. So I sold. I couldn't believe that it went up that high. And hindsight is genius. I wish I would have kept them. I think I had 50 Bitcoin at the time. And but over the coming years, from 2015 to currently, well, I would say 2018, 19 first, I then got into Bitcoin futures contract trading, which is similar to trading on E-Trade or something for the stock market, where you actually have your graphs and your trade charts and all that stuff up, and you could trade right off the charts with leverage, and up to 100x leverage. And that was a learning experience as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Of course, I never traded 100x leverage anymore, but of course I experimented with it, and that's how you lose money, and that's how you learn what not to do. Right. So long story short, been trading Bitcoin, and we started a Facebook group called the Crypto Renegades last year in 2021. And ever since then, we have over 1,200 members in there, and we have a mastermind group where we teach and train and coach people not only how to trade futures contracts, but also how to get in on new token launches, ICOs, pre-sales, private sales in the decentralized exchanges. These are tokens that most people have never heard of and probably never will hear of. It's kind of like the penny stock world in the stock market, where there are new tokens, new companies, but they may not ever make it to the big leagues, but they try. And we can participate in those launches in the beginning for sometimes 2x to 100x gains.
Interesting. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. And awesome story, by the way. Really, really interesting background. You're right. That is. So sorry about your father. Obviously, it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
but it does affect and shape the way that you begin to think about things, and you really figured things out for yourself, which is probably what your father probably had to do back when he did it. Just it's interesting that you had to obviously go through that yourself, just because of unfortunately what happened to your father. But I find it fascinating, first of all, that the person that ended up teaching a little bit about entrepreneurship was your mother, right? Because out of necessity to be able to survive, and then you obviously have taken that to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Which is really kudos to you. I mean, it's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the crypto. So first of all, I understand what futures is, but there's a lot of people that'll be on here that don't understand what futures are. So Bitcoin futures, which I don't remember when they started allowing futures to be trading, but it was fairly recently, in the last few years, I think, right? Explain to people first what futures are when trading on Bitcoin. What does that mean? What is the definition what does futures mean, and how does it relate to Bitcoin? Because people who may do it on stocks, I'm sure it's very similar, but there's different lots and so on and so forth. So
yeah, so futures, a futures contract is basically it's a legal contract to buy or sell something at a predetermined price that so in other words, if I'm basically betting. If I'm going long, I'm betting at a price higher than the current price. If I'm going short, I'm buying it at the lower price. So if I go short right here and it drops down to here, I'm selling it down here, which really means I'm buying it at that lower price and selling it up here at the price that I started at. It's a little confusing, takes a little bit to understand, but it's basically it's the same thing almost as options, in the stock market, where you're betting on a price to be settled at a certain predetermined time in the future. And So between both parties, you're basically, as Gordon Gekko would say, it's a zero-sum game. Someone's betting that it's going to go the opposite direction, and you're betting it's going to go the opposite direction that they think it's going to go. The difference is in Bitcoin futures contracts is that I trade on a Bitcoin margin. So when I win a trade, I don't make US dollars, I make Bitcoin. And my goal in that account is to accumulate more Bitcoin. My goal is to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible, because in the future, I personally believe that Bitcoin is going to be at a certain price. Let's just hypothetically say $10 million per Bitcoin by the year 2032. And I didn't just throw that number out there arbitrarily. I believe that that's probably where it will be by that time. And there's reasons why I believe that, and we can get to that if you want. But
yeah, the scarcity, right? So scarcity, there's 21 million, right? Bitcoin that's running out. We're getting towards the end of that in the next, I think, several years, right? And once that's all out, there is no more that can be made unless Satoshi comes back and does some sort of magical thing, which we don't even know if he's alive or who he is or any of that kind of stuff. So short of that, it's basically out in the market, and when it's all gone, it's gone, right? Is that kind of a little bit of the rationale towards it?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. There's 19 million Bitcoins that have already been mined, and there's another 3 million to go, and it will take until approximately the year 2060 to mine the rest of them because of the halving every 4 years. And so there's scarcity. That's one thing. But then there's also the asset itself, and what it's outperformed every other asset class in the past decade, every single one of them, by not just a little bit, by a huge amount. Bitcoin's averaged, if you take the last 10 years, it's averaged almost 200% a year. Now, some people say, well, Bitcoin dropped from $69,000 down to $20,000 this year. That's like a 60% whatever drop. And that's true. But from 2010 to now, it's up 6 million %. So you're still up. It's so far up from its beginning stages that it's
Right.
almost absurd. But here's the real reason why it's gonna go up. Because right now, currently, only about 1% of the entire investing world is holding Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin might have hit the $1 trillion market cap earlier last year. I think it's probably less than that now, 800, 900 million. But gold, for instance, everybody knows gold. Everybody thinks gold is a hedge against inflation, and it's a good store of wealth. But gold's market cap is about 10 trillion. And because it's been around hundreds of years, thousands of years rather, and most people know it, and they feel comfortable with it. They know the value of it. And Bitcoin just has a ways to go when it comes to that. But once Bitcoin gets to 5% of the investing world, meaning 5% of the people who invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, silver, gold, anything that goes up in value, real estate. Once 5% of those people buy some Bitcoin and we get up into the 5% bracket, now we're talking about a $500,000 to $1 million Bitcoin. Once it gets to 10%, which is a very small amount of the investing world, once they all just start to realize that this isn't going anywhere and it's a store of wealth that is an asset, it is now an asset class, then you're going to see 10, 15, 20% of the investing world hold some form of Bitcoin, whether it's a fraction of it or a whole Bitcoin or whatnot. So at that point, you're looking at a $10 to $15 million Bitcoin.
Well, I think that's an important thing. And I think the next part of it is explaining the difference between Bitcoin and even Ethereum or any of these other coins like Dogecoin, or, these meme coins, or,
altcoins.
There's millions of them out there, but Solana and all these different things. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. So one of the biggest differences why it really is an asset class, Bitcoin is because there is no CEO organization that is controlling who owns a large percentage of it. Where, for example, Ethereum, where Vitalik owns, I don't know, 20 billion worth or 50 billion, whatever it is,
yes,
that's set aside for him, right? And if he dictates he wants to create more, doesn't matter what he says right now, if he dictates that he wants to create more of it, then that can affect the price dramatically. And then it also can affect who gains the wealth on that, right? And if he wants to give it to me or you and put it aside and just do that, he can. Whereas Bitcoin, there is nobody in control of that. And that's the way that Satoshi set it up. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct. It's open source Bitcoin. It's not controlled by any central uh, body. It's not a company that there's a guy at the top who could just sell all of their shares, so to speak, and dump on everybody and basically wipe it out, or do what you said, burn tokens or trade them for something else, or sell the company to someone else who has a different plan for it. And so Bitcoin, you've heard of the term altcoins.
Yep.
Altcoins are everything other than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the only one out of all the cryptos that is not an altcoin, an alternative coin. Bitcoin is the main one. It's the original. It's the strongest asset right now. It's the top dog basically on the list, and everything else is either serving some type of you know Web3 purpose. It maybe helps in processing for payment processing, or they've solved some problem technologically that smart contracts and things like that. And there is a use for those things for sure. And I believe that if Bitcoin does hit $10 million, Ethereum will probably be, you know, 60, 80, $90,000 for
Right.
one Ethereum
Right.
when that day comes. But I personally, and this is, I do get in on token launches. I do buy and sell. I get in, I get out. I don't hold many of them. Bitcoin's pretty much the only one that I think will stand the test of time as an asset class. That's just my personal opinion. But there's a lot of, like you said, Cardano and Solano. There's a lot of good use for those tokens. They do solve problems, and they will be around. There's definitely several of them. Many of them will be around for decades. But I think most of them will fall to the wayside over time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really important point, and I think that to me, that's, I'm pretty good at understanding what Bitcoin is about versus everything else. People have to understand the differences between, if you look at Bitcoin like gold or as an asset, right? And you look at, and this is always the argument. I think Mike Saylor made this argument, okay, that the rest of them, and that's why there is my guess is that the other ones are going to have some form of regulation down the line, because there is a company behind them versus the other, and there is some sort of, whether you agree or disagree, whether it's trading or not trading, there is some sort of like paper-like asset that is owned by a company with those other altcoins. Now, that just like a company, they serve great purposes. Apple serves a purpose. Strategy serves. They all serve purposes, and they solve problems. Which why they are, the good ones, and there's going to be more that'll come and go, are very important. But Bitcoin is the coin that everything is measured against. If you, and correct me if I'm wrong, if someone has to, I don't know, if they're on margin on all these other coins, you usually have to they usually take away your Bitcoin first when they go and they have to fill the margin. They don't take away Dogecoin from you. They take away your Bitcoin as a store of asset, right? And so
That's
is
correct.
that one of the, is that the fundamental difference, I think,
Yeah.
between everything?
That's a good point. Yes. And, if you want to borrow money, like US dollars, fiat currency against a crypto, the only one you can do that against is Bitcoin. And you can, on Coinbase, on Nexo, on several exchanges, you can borrow up to 60% against your Bitcoin. And like Nexo, for instance, they'll let you borrow against your entire account balance. But like you said, if Bitcoin goes down in value, or if you default, they're going to take your Bitcoin. And so similar to banks, like if you want to go into the bank and say, hey, can I get a loan to buy these diamonds? They're going to say no. Can I get a loan to buy this gold? They're going to say no. There's only a few things they loan against, and that's hard assets like real estate, for instance. You can borrow from a bank to buy real estate. You can also borrow against your stock portfolio to a certain extent as well. But like you just brought up with Apple, for instance, the company, the head of Apple, something could happen to him. He could go fly up to space and never come back. Now somebody else is running the company, right? And then they run it to the ground, and the stock will go down. So the value of your crypto is dependent on the leader of that company and what their actions are. And Bitcoin kind of has a mind of its own. I mean, there's a huge following. There's millions of people. It's billions and billions of dollars traded every minute on the exchanges. And but it's kind of like, I like to give the example of like Rembrandts or Picassos. If there's only 10 of them in the world, and you don't hear about them, and all of a sudden one comes up for sale at an auction, and we've all seen that, where some secret billionaire somewhere spends $60 million on a Rembrandt. They're like, who is buying paintings for $60 million? But what they don't realize is, and they think these people are stupid for doing that. I would never do that with $60 million. But it's because the guy made $400 million in profit that year. And by buying a $60 million Rembrandt and then donating the Rembrandt to his charity, he gets a $60 million write-off, and he still has the Rembrandt on his wall. And then, 3 years from now, when he decides to put it back up to Sotheby's auction, it's now worth $120 million. Well, you see what happens there. So he quadruples his money, and it goes to his charity that he controls, which he donated it to as a write-off. So there's all kinds of reasons why rich people do what they do. That doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. You need to get rich first before you do what rich people do. And that's another mistake a lot of people make. They say, well, billionaires are buying gold, and that doesn't mean you should if you only got $10,000 to your name, because you're going to need to sell that now to pay your bills. Rich people don't have to sell their gold to pay their bills.
That's right.
So I know I get off topic there a little bit, but
those are actually fantastic points. I mean, you've got to make the money first, and you got to focus on that part of it in order to get there. How about so ICOs, okay, which are initial coin offering? Is that how you say it?
Yep. Okay. Just like IPOs in the stock market, these are initial coin offerings. It's brand new tokens that are just being born for the first time.
How do you identify? Because there's so many, right? And you said actually earlier that you don't stay in for a long haul, which I think is actually a pretty darn good strategy, because it is hard to figure out winners and losers in that, right? But how do you try to figure out potential winners? What are some of the things that you might look for in ICO?
Yeah, so I have access to we have scouts that work for us, and they're scouting all over the internet, all the various token websites, all the different exchanges, crypto, CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, and all these different places trying to find brand new tokens that are getting ready to be launched. And then they go through a vetting process where we're going to vet them. We're going to determine, and we're talking 25 to 50 a week. It's a ridiculous amount. It used to be even more than that. And it's going to become more than that, because we're talking about just the Binance Smart Chain network of tokens. Right. There's so many other smart chains. There's Solana and Cardano and Ethereum. They all have smart chains, and they all have tokens that launch on those chains. But what's going to happen, more of them are going to start coming. But basically what we do is we scout them, we vet them, which basically means we go through each one with a fine-tooth comb to see who's behind it. Who are the developers? Are they docs? Do we know who they are? Are they hiding behind some, meme image, or are they really out there? Their faces to the public? Do they have social media accounts? Are they on, Instagram, Facebook, and I can't remember all the different ones, but we basically go through all their social medias, and then we contact them on Telegram. We message them. We ask them questions. We want to make sure what their intentions are. We look at their website. We want to make sure all their links are accurate. We also make sure that they have been audited before the launch, that everything is in a line. Now what this does is when we share that with our members in our mastermind, that means that 99.9% chance that this is not a scam. It's not going to be a rug pull. It's not going to be a honeypot, which are two terms in the scam world. A rug pull is when you buy and you get in there, and then once the price goes up to a certain amount, the developer, the owner, pulls the rug. They call it a rug pull. And what that means is they just sell everything that they have and dump on their customers or their buyers, their investors. And then a honeypot is where you think everything's going good, it looks good, you buy in, and then okay, you're up 2x, 3x, you're ready to get out, so you go to sell and you can't sell. The sell button doesn't work. They blocked it on you. So it's a honeypot. It's attracting you in, but it won't let you out. And so we vet all these to make sure that's not going to happen, first of all. And we haven't had one in over a year in our mastermind group where we've had a scam. So that's a good thing. So they're not that, we teach people how to find them, but they're not that easy to find and vet and to make sure that they're legit. So out of the 25 to 50 a week, we narrow it down to about 2 to 5 a week that we share in our mastermind.
That's interesting. And so you're basically minimizing the risk, and then when you share that, those people trust that they're going to be able to get in something that has a chance to be successful.
That's correct.
And obviously there's always risk in it, but it's very, very interesting. Now, obviously we know the whole thing going on with Sam Bankman-Fried, and you mentioned Binance, right? And I don't know, did Binance by their bankruptcy. I don't remember exactly what happened when FTX went down, but obviously he was arrested on charges of long and short of it, fraud. Okay, we could go into it, but most people won't understand exactly what it is. But long and short of it is fraud. How can you prevent, like, you have a mastermind, people trust you, and I love that your focus mostly is on Bitcoin, and I like your strategy on the ICOs. How do you try to help people understand what not to put their money into from an exchange standpoint, how to trust places where they go do an ICO, and where do how do you steer them in the right direction there?
Yeah, great question, because the problem with most of the people that join our mastermind, they've already been ripped off. They already lost money. They've already done this 5 times. And for some reason, maybe they had success with one, but then they lost it on the next one because they got into the wrong thing rather. And that's very common. And it's happened to me when I was learning this process. I've been in honeypots, I've been in rug pulls until I figured out and understood what to do and what not to do and what to look for. And that's just all part of, that's kind of like anything in life. If you quit before you figure things out, you're just not going to be successful at it. And so it took us a while to figure all that out and get good at it. But yeah, so FTX, teaching people what, the funny thing is about a year ago, I thought the guy was a genius. When I first heard his story and how he arbitraged Bitcoin and became a billionaire by buying Bitcoin on one exchange and selling it on another for an arbitrage, I'm like, well, that's genius. He did great. And then he borrowed $10 million and did that and did it over and over again until he turned that into billions. And so I thought, but I never saw him speak. I never saw him articulate how he did it. I just heard stories of him. And then and so I thought he was a smart guy. But then, and then when FTX started, I thought that was great. I said, okay, man, this kid is really doing good. He's built this exchange. He's got all these public endorsements. He's got all these celebrities endorsing him. Looks great. Everything's great. But for some reason, I never bought into it and I never opened an account there. And that's probably because I was already set in my ways. I already had the accounts that I use and that I trade on. And I didn't need it, his exchange, because I already had my little system. But I had no reason not to open an account there. So it came as a surprise to me when all this kind of unfolded. But then when I started hearing him talk on the interviews, I realized, oh my God, this guy is not what everybody thought. He kind of acted like he didn't know what was going on and that he was just, dumb and, didn't really understand how he got to where he's at. And then, so just the other day, it was announced that he was arrested in the Bahamas. And so I guess now he's going to have to answer for everything, and it's going to come down probably pretty hard on him. Billions of dollars lost. Right. So yeah, that was a surprise to me, what happened there. But back to your question though, is how do we know what's safe and what's not safe? It's very difficult because Coinbase, for instance, is the biggest. It's a publicly traded company. I would imagine their stock would be going up right now, or is going to soon because of all this. A lot of people would stay away from exchanges and they think, oh, better get out of all of these exchanges, because there's an old saying, not your keys, not your wallet. Meaning if you don't have your 12-word seed phrase, like a wallet or a hard wallet or a cold storage wallet, then someone else is controlling it. So if you have an account at crypto.com or Coinbase, technically speaking, you could try to log in one day and not be able to get in, and they could basically seize your assets if they wanted to. So I wouldn't keep too much on these centralized exchanges, but if you are going to, I would think Coinbase is the biggest one, and they don't have their own token; they have their own stock because they're publicly traded, and I think the stock has actually gone up a little bit since this whole thing has happened. But it's very hard to tell. And so what we always advise our people is to have your own wallet, your own hard wallet, your own cold storage wallet. MetaMask is one that we use. And so far, so good. We haven't had any problems there. No one has access to it but yourself, unless you give them the 12-word seed phrase. So no one can take it from you unless there's just no internet access and no one else can get online and all the internet's shut down. Then we have other problems to deal with.
That's right. We have other problems. That's exactly right. And that's what I tell people too. They're like, well, what happens if we can they can no longer mine Bitcoin? Or I said, well, if all that does happen, you're also gonna be looking for food. You're also gonna be looking for water. You're back to the basics of the world if that happens. So
yes,
you don't need money at that point. What you need is the ability to get food and water.
Yes, you need can openers. And I used to tell people that. I said, you might want to stock up on can openers. You know why? Because if you can't get money out of the banks and the internet's down and you can't get your crypto to trade for goods and services, and people start getting hungry, then what's going to be in demand? And what's going to be in demand at that point will be can openers, because people won't be able to get into the cans for the canned food. And if you have a can opener, you're probably going to be a pretty valuable asset at that point. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, if we get to that level, then learn some survival skills. We got other problems.
That's right. Learn to make fire. I find this an incredibly fascinating topic, and I really there's a lot of ways we can go to it. I'd like, if you can, to share some of your success principles that you have. You know, we talked a lot of the background of Bitcoin and how you kind of choose different things, but what are the principles that you've kind of come up with that have helped you to become successful that other people may be able to adopt?
Yeah, so great question. You know, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, make some fairy tale story up. I don't have a college education. I don't believe you need one. I believe that most everything that is going to help you in life is something that you can learn from somebody who's doing it. So I always highly recommend the first thing you should invest in is yourself and your education. And when I say that, I don't mean go to college or go to night school or anything like that, because they're not going to teach you how to make money. They're not going to teach you how to get rich. They're not going to, and not everybody wants to get rich, but if you want to make money and you want to get ahead and even slowly build wealth,
right?
Even though I don't believe in slowly doing anything because life is too short. Get rich quick. A lot of people say, "Oh, is that a get rich quick scheme?" I'm like, no, but why would you want to get rich slow? I mean, time takes life goes by too quickly, and the only way to get rich is relatively quickly. And when I say that, I mean within a 10-year span. And most people who have done it usually does it within a decade. And why I bring that up is because if you want to learn how to do something, hire somebody that's doing what you're doing or have done what you're trying to do, and shorten the gap, shorten the learning curve. It's the fastest way to learn something. You do not have to be a genius. You do not have to know anything. All you got to do is follow the instructions or the same path that someone else has done or is doing currently to reach your goal. So what I always tell people when I say, what's the first thing I do? Even when they come in our mastermind and they see the step 1, step 2, step 3 in the back office, they're skipping down to step 5 and then calling me and saying, hey, I'm trying to set this thing up and I don't understand. I said, did you watch step 1 through 4 first? Because that answers all those questions. No, I'm just in a hurry. I'm like, go back to step 1. That's the fastest way to accomplish your goals. And, I probably spent over 6 figures in coaching and mentoring myself over the past, 5 or 6 years in all different kinds of things. If I want to learn how to, buy apartment buildings, I'm hiring a coach who's done that, who owns 100 units or more to teach me how to do it. And same with crypto and same with stock trading. I spent $25,000 to learn how to trade stocks at the online school of trading. Anybody who's gone to that class knows it's very expensive. And now, why would someone do that? Because if you want to do something good, you got to go to the people who are doing it good. And that's pretty much the best advice I can give to somebody. I mean, besides taking action, because once you learn something, you need to apply what you learned. And that's where most people fail. They'll even pay for coaching and they still won't do what they just learned. They'll sit on the sidelines and watch, and then they'll still complain as to why they're not getting results. It's because they're not doing the thing that they need to do.
Right.
That they know how to do.
What was the first things that you did to really get you to take action in those areas? Because that definitely is I see so many people that go and learn from this and learn from that and get this certification, they get that certification, get this thing going, and they never go anywhere with it. What are some of the things that you think people need to do in order to take action?
Well, it's funny because I did a video on this I think on my YouTube channel not that long ago, and it was basically it's confidence is what it is, and most people just lack the confidence to take action. Sometimes they know what to do. It's kind of like dieting and exercise. I think everybody knows how to lose weight, and everybody knows what they shouldn't be eating, and everybody knows what they should be exercising. And so if you find yourself 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, and you think you need to buy some new program to help you, really, you just go look in the mirror and understand, okay, listen, it's not anything that you're going to learn. It's just stop doing. There's certain things you need to stop doing. Not necessarily things you need to start doing, but things you need to stop doing. You stop eating so much. Stop eating so many calories. Stop eating late after 7 p.m. Stop eating sugar. There's things you need to cut out of your life to reach your goals. And it's and same with a lot of businesses. A lot of people think, oh, if I just went to this guy's training, I might understand this. Or if I just went to one more seminar. And the reality is you've already been through enough seminars. You already know what to do. Now, what do you need to actually do? Take that first step. And a lot of times it's the simplest thing. And I think people look at the big picture and they say, I want to be at this level by this time next year. And they're trying to bite off more than they can chew. What's your goal? I want to make $100,000 a month. What are you making now? 3,000. Okay. How about we get to 10,000 first? How about instead of trying to worry about getting to 100,000, how about you just get to 6,000, double what you're doing now. And then we can go to 8, and then we can go to 10, and then so on and so forth. But a lot of people see that 100,000, they're like so far away from it, they get overwhelmed and they just give up. So right. Taking small little steps, one step at a time, it really does get you there. I mean, just use common sense. If you were to walk out your front door right now and your goal was to walk to the grocery store, and you know where the grocery store is, right? In your neighborhood, everybody who's listening to this knows how far that walk would be. Some of you, it's across the street. Some of you, it's 2 miles down the road. You do realize that you would get there after so many steps. And, but if you never leave your house and take the first step, you will never, ever get there. But all you got to do is just start walking. All you got to do is just start taking the steps. And it's as simple as it sounds. That is the key to success in life. And I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn that simple step.
No, it's an incredibly valuable point. I mean, that was fantastic. All right, my last question, and I think you will have a good answer for this. If I had $10,000 to put somewhere right now, okay, and not that you're giving advice, but where within the crypto space do you think would be the best places to put it?
Well, the answer could be dangerous to some and easy for others. And the reason why is because if someone doesn't know what they're doing, but they have $10,000 and I just say, go throw it into this particular crypto, and they could lose that very quickly without knowing what they're doing, because they might not know how to get out. They might not know, they might send it to the wrong address and poof, it's gone. They might not understand how to transfer from Coinbase or crypto.com. So education, I would always say, is the first thing. You do got to learn what it is you're trying to do. I know I just said you got to take action, but that is an action. First understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. If I didn't know how to walk and my goal was to walk to the grocery store, I would first have to learn how to walk, and then I can take the steps to the store. But if you're not know how to walk yet, then you got to learn that first. So, as painful it is for some people to hear, they probably should hire a mentor that's doing what it is they're trying to do. And it wouldn't necessarily cost $10,000, but part of that should go to that. And then the balance could then be invested into something that can grow and double and triple. Whereas if they didn't have the guidance and they just threw a dart and tried to get lucky, they could lose the whole thing and then have to start over. And a lot of people do that a lot. They come to me actually in crypto. They come to Crypto Renegades after they've lost or had their accounts wrecked 5 times. And then they finally say, man, I'm tired of losing money. I need to learn how to do this. And I'm like, man, if you would have just done this from the beginning, you wouldn't have lost all that money.
Yeah. That's a great point. Really, really valuable point. Fantastic stuff. I enjoyed hearing your story. I think everybody really learned a good amount about crypto because people are always so confused about it. And they try to dive in, but there's really just some simplistic things that they need to learn first before they do anything else. I think you touched on about that. It's not going to school that educates you, but it's the education that you invest in yourself and you find the right people that can help you. That's the education you need in order to be able to have a chance to be successful, right? There's risk in anything you do, but that gives you the best chance to be successful. I can't thank you enough for being on the Success for Life podcast, Niko.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And
tell them where they can find you. Tell them where they can find you so everybody knows where to go and find Crypto Renegades and everything that you do.
Yeah, so we do have a free private Facebook group on Facebook. It's called Crypto Renegades. 2x to 100x, it says in the headline. You can also send me a friend request. If I can't accept it because it's full, you can follow me on Facebook. It's Niko Mercuris. I think the name's right on the screen there. Mm-hmm. And also on Instagram, on YouTube, it's Niko Mercuris. I also have another YouTube channel called Cryptique. That's CRYPTO. I'm sorry, CRYPTIQUE, Cryptique, like critique, but I'm cryptic. I'm critiquing crypto.
Yep.
And so you can find me there. Send me a message on any of those social medias. Join the Facebook group. reach out if you want to learn how to get in the mastermind. We'll be happy to hop on a free Zoom call. I'll show you behind the scenes, show you how we do everything, and see if it's for you.
Awesome. Niko, thank you so much for being on. Guys, make sure you check him out for the Success for Life podcast. This is Coach Schuman. I'm here with Niko Mercuris. It is fantastic talking with him the whole entire time. Check him out, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.